building, and so thank you, not only for having a great building to be here in, but also for the amazing food. I will tell you that after a long day, we started at 7 this morning, so there was 7, and we ended a little bit after 4:30. You know, that's what, 9.5 hours of running. We started in White River and ran all the way through the mountains. And the mountains weren't that bad today as they were yesterday when we were going through Salt River Canyon. But they were still nice and hilly. You know, I'm not one of the runners, but
you ran Salt River Canyon.
We did.
Driving is
actually, the White Mountain Apache tribe showed up, and they mostly ran Salt River Canyon, you know, because we needed the help, believe me. We have our core runners sprinkled in, you know, amongst, you know, the local runners so that we can have fresh legs, because it's a long, grueling journey that we're on, and absolutely. But I'll get to that. So the food, amazing, amazing food, you know, unbelievable. That chicken, whoever grilled that chicken, I mean, that was just perfecto. Just falling off the bone. Beautiful. And one of the things that has been really, you know, warming to us is that we are able to come to a place that gets it. You know, we are able to come and fellowship with veterans and the community who understand what it means to have freedom at cost. And so to be able to come to a Legion, this is our 22nd day of running, and in 22 days, probably 19 of them in the evenings have been spent at American Legion halls. And so we're just so proud to be able to come to American Legion. It's almost like anytime we need, we call, and the Legion will say, what do you need, we'll be there for you. And I'm just so proud of the Legion for that. And thank you guys. It just means so much. So my name is George Lutz. I'm the founder of an organization called Honor and Remember. You might have seen the Honor and Remember flag. We're kind of wearing it as part of our shirt logo. It's a flag that was designed and established to become a national symbol of remembrance. It actually is officially the Department of Arizona American Legion's symbol of remembrance. If you didn't know that, it is officially the State Department of Arizona's flag of remembrance. So if you don't have one, you should have one somewhere around the post. But through the organization of Honor and Remember, we created a run, if you will, to remember our fallen, because the organization was established and the flag was established to recognize every fallen service member in the history of our country, regardless of generation, regardless of branch of service, and really regardless of cause of death. Because the flag represents anyone who died while serving, or anyone who died as a result of serving. So that's the only criteria. It's a pretty broad criteria. And so we thought, well, what is the best way of honoring those men and women who gave their lives? Well, 10 years ago, our organization was founded in 2008 on Memorial Day. 2 weeks after Memorial Day, on Flag Day, a gentleman named John Malona, he had lost his college roommate in 2005. And so he wanted to do something to remember his roommate, and John himself was a runner. So he decided on Flag Day of 2008 that he was going to run across America in honor of his college roommate, whose name was Michael Cleary, Corporal Michael Cleary. So John and a handful of guys, and some gals too, decided to just hit the streets and start running. And they ran about 4,000 miles through about 11 states in about 72 days. And it was just a core small group. Well, John and I became friends, actually, right after he started the run, and I started the organization. And he started, his organization was called Run to the Fallen. This is how I'm getting to where we are now. So over the years, John and I have stayed friends, and about 6 years ago, we absorbed basically the Run for the Fallen organization, because Honor and Remember is all about remembering our military fallen. And what better way of doing that than to actually call these names out loud and let America know that we haven't forgotten their names and we haven't forgotten their families. And so basically John and I collaborated, and we started state runs across the country, and we do have one in Arizona we've done for 5 years. We run from Tucson to Phoenix every year. It's 146 miles. And we run for only Arizona fallen service members. So come on down. It's always the third weekend of October. This year we're not doing it, but we have been doing it for the last 5 years. And so as we started to get closer to 2018, John and I were talking, and we said, you know, it's the 10th anniversary of both our organizations. And back in 2008, John only ran for battle casualties. And there was about 3,800 battle casualties at that time in 2008. War on Terror. And so, looking ahead, this was 2.5 years ago, we thought we need to reprise this run, and we need to add every single service member who's now died since 2008. We got 10 more years of casualties, right? So we started to work with the DOD and the Department of the Army and the Navy, and we started compiling a list. So we started with one list, and we added and added and added, and not even the DOD has the list that we have now. So we have compiled the largest fallen veteran database of probably anyone in the country. And why is that? Because we're not only honoring those that died while serving, we're honoring those that may have died later on as a result of serving, maybe through PTSD or other injuries that may have been hidden. And the DOD doesn't capture that. Once you're out, and that's pretty much it. So we have compiled this list. If you go to our website and you search for your buddy and he's not there, you can add him. So we've been adding, to the point where our list is now over 20,000 names. People say, where do you get these names? We've compiled these names, and we've vetted these names, and we've talked to these families, and so we've got a huge list. So you look at this list, right, on our 10th anniversary, and you go, how do we do this? I mean, this is an immense amount of men and women who people don't realize. I mean, if you go to the website, you'll see Iraq and Afghanistan casualties that's just about 7,000. I mean, this is 3 times that amount. So what we did was, we couldn't run a mile for every hero, because we'd be running and running and running for a long, long time. So what we decided to do was to take the dates of death and identify unique dates of death and use those as our mile markers. So once we boiled down the list and organized it, we came up with about 6,100 unique dates of death. So we thought, well, that is a little bit more. So we started with the USS Cole, October 12, 2000. That was our first mile. And then every single day that someone died after that was another mile. Whether it was one person or whether it was 25 that died on that day. Anywhere in the world, it didn't matter. As long as they died on that day, they would be honored at that mile. And so mile after mile, from Fort Irwin, we started on April 7th, we have been running for these service members one date at a time. Today we ran 51 miles for 209 heroes, and those 209 heroes died within a 2-month period in 2003. So this day, today, was a 2003 day. We did not, I don't think we hit 2004 today, but I know we ran through December.
December 24th.
I know we didn't hit Christmas today.
We did all the way through December 26th, I think.
So just to let you know, a compilation of names, what you're going to hear tonight is this compilation of names that really only accounted for 2 months. This is a huge, tragedy in this country to have so many men and women to have given their lives in such a short period of time. And so our mission is to read every one of these 20,000 names all the way across the country based on date of death, all the way to Arlington Cemetery. Well, we started this mission 2.5 years ago. You got to know that a lot of people have died in the last 2.5 years, so we didn't forget about them. We left ourselves 1,000 miles of blank space just to make sure that no one was forgotten. We're within 50 miles of our destination in using those miles up. So that's how many casualties we've had in the last 2.5 years. As a matter of fact, we add about 40 names a month to the end of our month. And so when I say that this is going to be the most comprehensive fallen veteran tribute ever compiled, ever conceived, ever executed, believe me, the amount of work that it's taken, starting on April 7th, running for 5 months, and ending on August the 5th in Arlington National Cemetery, I hope at that podium we will read the very last name that has died up to that moment. And this is going to be the most amazing, amazing feat that has ever been done. And we want America to know about it, obviously, right? I mean, for us to call out loud every single mile these names so that they're not forgotten. The families haven't forgotten, right? I mean, they're remembering these men and women their own every single day. But it's the rest of us, and not even us, because I'm preaching to the choir here, but those of America who really don't understand the price of freedom and what it takes to keep us with our American flag flying on free soil, right? And so we hoped that by calling these names out loud, that eventually somebody out there in the general public would go, oh my gosh, somebody is calling out every single name that has died in the last 18 years. Every single name, bar none. And we're doing it live. You could watch us as long as we have a signal, and sometimes we didn't, especially through that canyon. But most of the time we have a signal. And you can hear us mile after mile calling these names out loud. Very reverently, very respectfully, very consistently, so that every hero gets the same attention and the same due. And not only do we want America to hear it, but we want the families who can't be there to hear us honoring their loved one. And so the significance of this is beyond my words. I mean, I want you to just think about what it is we're doing. It's never been done that I know of, never even been attempted. And we have a very small crew, and they're mostly in this room. I mean, they're mostly taking up the room. So raise your hand if you're part of the crew, whether you're a runner or a driver or just a... So here's the crew. We've got 4 support vehicles, 2 RVs and two cars, which help us in a lot of ways. So far, we've had 5 flat tires in the last 3 weeks. 5 flat tires and 1 pending flat tire. And so it hasn't been without its challenges, as you can imagine. I have a spare tire. You got a spare tire.
We worked over Goodyear, we're good.
We're good.
We're good. Yeah, you're good.
And so we are on our 22nd day of 120 days. We are in our 2nd state of 19 states. We have a long, long way to go. And one of our traditions every day, bar, any complications, and sometimes I'll tell you what is to read the names of those that we ran for. And sometimes we did it in the RV by ourselves one night. We did it outside in the hotel parking lot one night. I mean, it doesn't matter if we have an audience. We're going to read those names not only every mile throughout the day, but we're going to reread those names at night because because we want to hear them again. And we want to recognize those service members one more time. But when we're with family, we're able to then share that because you guys didn't hear those names today, but we, as we call them. And so tonight, as we go through the reading of the names, you're going to get to hear them for the families. Imagine that you're standing in for each one of these families that we are going to call out tonight. And that's a pretty significant thing, right? And we do have some Gold Star families in the room. And Ashley. Ashley lost her husband. And Paulette and Augie there lost their son. And I don't know, is there anybody else?
You.
Oh, worry about me. Anybody else in the room lose a loved one, family member? So as part of our ceremony, we're going to have our runners ready. What we're going to do is we're going to retrain. But one of the things I was thinking about as we started this journey, and it's something that may be meaningful or it may be not meaningful to you. But it's something I want you to think about as you hear these names. We can read a list of names, whatever those names are, and they may mean nothing to you. Except if we got to a name that was somebody you knew, you know how your heart goes, oh, I knew that person. Whatever situation it is when there's a reading of the names. I want you to think about that tonight. That every one of these names we're reading does have a family. And they do have friends, and they had people that loved them. And this may be the last time anybody reads this name out loud. It may be, because a lot of to be able to express out loud the name of someone is very, very powerful. And the emotion of losing someone is very hard to hold on to. And speaking out names out loud doesn't often happen. I'm going to give you guys a chance in a minute, and I'll explain it. But you may have known some buddies that were lost in whatever era, whether it be of that Vietnam or the Gulf War or even the current conflict. And you might know and keep them in your heart, and you might even have a bracelet with their name on it, but you might not have ever said their name out loud. This could be the last time in some of these cases that anyone says these names or hears them. So I want you to think about that as these names are being read. And there's a lot of names. There's 209 names. It's not going to happen in 2 minutes. And just listen reverently and realize that these men and women gave their lives for our country. Now, we're not only always great on pronunciation, so forgive us for that. But when we're done reading these names, I'm going to give everyone here an opportunity to call out the name of someone that they might have known. It might not have been a family member. It might have been somebody you served with, or somebody that's a part of the post, somebody that's given their life while serving. And I don't want anybody to be shy. If you know a name, and it could be a community member, it doesn't matter, somebody in your community, I'm going to give you the opportunity to call out their name out loud before we conclude. So, guys, please.
Private Jeremiah B. Preveza, United States Army. Petty Officer, 2nd Class, Douglas Edward Bowles, United States Navy. Lieutenant Colonel Edward Stephen Mitchell, III, United States Air Force. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Kyron E. Kennedy, United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Cornell W. Gilmore I, United States Army. Captain Benedict J. Smith, United States Army. Sergeant Scott C. Rose, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Paul M. Neff II, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Morgan Deshawn Kennan, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Sharon T. Swartworth, United States Army. Private First Class Cornelius Lorenzo Curry, United States Army. Sergeant Linda C. Jimenez, United States Army. Private Kurt R. Froschiser, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Mark D. Vasquez, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Gary L. Collins, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Scott Leon Rogers, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Eric Daniel Curls, United States Air Force. Sergeant Nicholas A. Tomko, United States Army Reserve. Petty Officer 2nd Class John Benjamin Arras, United States Navy. Captain Susan Nancy Anderson, United States Navy. Sergeant Adam Edward Kassler, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Nathan William Finney, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Okolo Dennis Natasa, United States Army. Lance Corporal Zainal Sharon Abreu, United States Marine Corps. Specialist Marlon P. Jackson, United States Army. Private Raymond Christopher Durun Jr., United States Army. Colonel Michael Joseph Godfrey, United States Marine Corps. Private First Class Lionel Ulysses Cabrera, United States Army. Petty Officer First Class Mark Ashley Karanen, United States Navy. Fireman Apprentice Arnulfo Ortusta Estero Jr., United States Navy. Specialist Gennaro Acosta, United States Army. Specialist Robert A. Weiss, United States Army National Guard. Sergeant First Class Andrew Richard Easton, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Nathan J. Bailey, United States Army National Guard. Specialist Kyle Edward Whelan, United States Army. Private First Class Jacob S. Fletcher, United States Army. Sergeant Joseph Minucci II, United States Army. Sergeant J. A. Blessing, United States Army. Specialist Irving Medina, United States Army. First Lieutenant Keith Wayne Meyer, United States Army. Major Sol Belen Otero, United States Army. Corporal Daron Jermaine Nicholson, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer 2nd Class Donald William Nelson, United States Navy. Sergeant Timothy L. Hazlett, United States Army. Sergeant First Class Kelly Ballore, United States Army Reserve. Specialist John Robert Sullivan, United States Army. Specialist William D. Dusenbury, United States Army. Sergeant Michael D. Ackland II, United States Army. Private First Class Damian L. Hittelberg, United States Army. Specialist Jeremiah J. Giovanni, United States Army. Private First Class Joey D. Whitner, United States Army. Specialist Ryan T. Baker, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer Eric C. Kesterson, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer Scott A. Sabot, United States Army. Captain Pierre E. Piche, United States Army. Specialist Eugene A. Yule III, United States Army. Sergeant Warren S. Hansen, United States Army. Private First Class Richard W. Haffer, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Mark T. Miarana, United States Air Force. Private First Class Sheldon R. Hawk Eagle, United States Army. Sergeant John W. Russell, United States Army. Senior Airman Eric Reginald Jenkins, United States Air Force. Specialist Jermaine Meshel Reynolds, United States Army. Specialist Brian Daniel Kramer, United States Army. Captain James A. Schull, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Dale A. Tanschuck, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer Alexander S. Fulter, United States Army.
Captain Nathan S. Daly, United States Army. Chief Petty Officer Ralph Cecil Moore, United States Navy. Private Joel Michael Cox, United States Army. Petty Officer First Class Richard Allen Engler, Jr., United States Navy. Seaman Recruit Roderick Dwayne Little, United States Navy. Captain Scott Allen Marsh, United States Navy. Private Scott Matthew Terrell, United States Army. Captain George A. Wood, United States Army. Specialist Joseph Leroy Lister, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Robert Powell, Jr., United States Army. Private First Class Aaron Michael Owens, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer Third Class Jeremy Dean Hummel, United States Navy. Sergeant John Wayne Selsky, Jr., United States Army. Petty Officer Third Class Apollo Scott Starnes, United States Navy. Airman David Mitchell Wilson, United States Navy. Corporal Gary B. Coleman, United States Army. Private Christopher Paul Rousseau, United States Army. Lance Corporal Eric Roman, United States Marine Corps. Corporal Robert D. Roberts, United States Army. Private First Class Damian S. Bushhart, United States Army. Lance Corporal Chad Nathan Garner, United States Marine Corps. Private Michael Anthony Newton, United States Marine Corps. Corporal Scott Allen Stasny, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Derek Lamont Smith, United States Air Force. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Christopher G. Nason, United States Army. Corporal Darrell L. Smith, United States Army National Guard. Staff Sergeant Eddie E. Miniweather, United States Army. Specialist Brandon Maurice Gallegos, United States Army. Senior Chief Petty Officer Robin Scott Miller, United States Navy. Staff Sergeant Victor Ishmael Medina, Jr., United States Army. Specialist Rel A. Ravago IV, United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Jerry L. Wilson, United States Army. Sergeant Major Philip R. Albert, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Howard A. Walters, United States Air Force. Tech Sergeant William J. Kerwood, United States Air Force. Major Stephen Plumhoff, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Thomas A. Walkup Jr., United States Air Force. Specialist Amelia Chong Reeves Jackson, United States Army. Private Sean Patrick Fitzgerald, United States Army. Petty Officer 2nd Class Tremise Louise Dyson, United States Navy. Airman Crystal Lynn St. Auburn, United States Air Force. Sergeant Derek Paul Schroeder, United States Army. Sergeant David J. Goldberg, United States Army Reserve. Private Jeremy Layton Fitzgerald, United States Army. Captain Daniel Allen Hager, United States Air Force. Petty Officer 1st Class Richard Shane Collier, United States Navy. Sergeant Thomas J. Sweet II, United States Army. Sergeant 1st Class Tommy Bankston Jr., United States Army. Hospitalman Apprentice Renigold Lehman Jackson, United States Navy. Sergeant Ariel Rico, United States Army. Specialist Bobby Earl Phillips, United States Army. Sergeant 1st Class Danny Dean Francis, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Stephen A. Bertolino, United States Army. Specialist Aaron J. Sissel, United States Army National Guard. Senior Airman Joshua Kane Hinkey, United States Air Force. Senior Airman Marco Antonio Villa, United States Air Force. Airman Mark Joseph Luis Chavez, United States Navy. Sergeant Uday Singh, United States Army. Sergeant David Lee Kern, United States Army. Specialist Danella Ray McMiller, United States Army. Private Joseph Edward Jurwick, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Ricky Clayton Robinson, United States Air Force. Sergeant Ryan C. Young, United States Army. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Clarence E. Boone, United States Army. Specialist Raphael S. Davis, United States Army National Guard. Master Sergeant John Ronald Bradley, United States Air Force. Sergeant Darrell Brooks, United States Army.
Specialist Aaron R. Clark, United States Army. Lance Corporal J. Louis Lente, United States Marine Corps. Master Sergeant Michael Devon Green, United States Air Force. Lance Corporal Christopher Mayo Pruitt, United States Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Brian Keith McDonald, United States Air Force. Sergeant 1st Class John Dwayne Gooch, United States Army. Private Daniel Andre Estep, United States Army. Staff Sergeant German Antonio Marin, United States Air Force. Sergeant 1st Class Edward Daniel Fico, United States Army. Airman Anthony Corey Pate, U.S. Navy. Staff Sergeant Kevin Rashon Mosley, United States Army. Private Rebecca Sharon Lloyd, United States Army. PFC Ray J. Hutchinson, United States Army. Sergeant 1st Class Stephen Edward Hogan, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Stephen H. Bridges, United States Army. Specialist Christopher Jude Rivera Wesley, United States Army. Specialist Joseph M. Blickenstaff, United States Army. Chief Petty Officer George Jerry Ashbaugh, United States Navy. PFC, Jason G. Wright, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Timothy Hugh Feldhans, United States Air Force. PFC, Jarek M. Petty, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Richard A. Burdick, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Aaron T. Reese, United States Army. Sergeant Todd M. Bates, United States Army. Fireman Dustin Joe Powell, United States Navy. Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Joseph Gallagher, United States Army. Specialist Marshal L. Edgerton, United States Army. PFC Taurus O'Brien Stoltz, United States Army. Private Sean Stephen Candell, United States Army. Specialist Javoris Jermaine Moore, United States Army. Sergeant Jared W. Black, United States Army. PFC Jeffrey F. Braun, United States Army. Lance Corporal Justin Michael McCormick, United States Marine Corps. Lieutenant James Albert Potter, United States Navy. Senior Master Sergeant Anna Maria Desarm, United States Air Force. Specialist Carl Vincent Walton, United States Army. Specialist Ryan C. Ferguson, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Kimberly A. Bolts, United States Army. Tech Sergeant Douglas Richard Baer, United States Air Force. PFC Kenneth S. Suslin, United States Army. Specialist Nathan W. Nakis, United States Army. Private Brandon Thomas Ribaldo, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Stanley Bowsley, United States Marine Corps. Airman Christopher Michael Chappell, United States Air Force. Petty Officer 3rd Class Frank Allen Alds, Jr., United States Navy. Specialist Christopher J. Holland, United States Army. Chief Petty Officer Errol Mesadu, United States Navy. Sergeant Glenn R. Allison, United States Army. PFC Charles E. Bush, Jr., United States Army. Petty Officer 1st Class Elpidio Mendez Montes, United States Navy. Sergeant 1st Class Ira W. Clark, United States Army. Private Richard Alexander Cervantes, United States Army. Specialist Andre Orlando Chuck, United States Army. Sergeant Billy William Lowry, United States Marine Corps. Petty Officer 3rd Class Arturo Rayon Martel, United States Navy. First Lieutenant Edward M. Saltz, United States Army. PSC Stuart W. Moore, United States Army. Specialist Raymond Eugene Camel, United States Army. PFC Michael D. Barker, United States Army. Petty Officer 1st Class Joseph Dwight Barnett, United States Navy. Sergeant Theodore L. Peralt, United States Army. Lieutenant Junior Grade Gregory Michael Taylor, United States Navy. Sergeant Michael E. Yashinsky, United States Army. Sergeant Benjamin W. Biskey, United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Eric F. Cook, United States Army. Captain Christopher F. Sulzer, United States Army. Major Christopher J. Splinter, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Stephen C. Hattemer, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Thomas W. Christensen, United States Army. Major Anthony Ellis, United States Army. Master Sergeant David Sassaville Ransom, United States Air Force. Lieutenant Colonel Emmett Woodson Drumheller Jr., United States Air Force. Corporal Narin Hernandez, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Nathan Paul Dodd, United States Marine Corps. Senior Airman Kenneth Rashad Shaw, United States Air Force. Staff Sergeant Daniel Jesus Herrera, Jr., United States Air Force. Specialist Michael G. Mihalakis, United States Army. Specialist Charles G. Haight, United States Army. Staff Sergeant Michael J. Sutter, United States Army. Private Michael Roger Meyer, United States Army. Corporal Corey Ray West, United States Marine Corps. Airman Kevin Albert Carey, United States Air Force. Master Sergeant Lester Earl Rivers, United States Air Force. And Petty Officer 3rd Class Nicholas Robert Black, United States Navy.
I mentioned the dates and the compilation of where the names came from. I want to be accurate as to the so all of those names that we read were killed November 8th of 2003 to December 27th, 2003. That is the time period of every one of those names. I said I'd give you an opportunity. Is there, Ashley, would you stand up? Would you stand up and say your husband out loud?
Corporal Damon Glenn LeGrand, U.S. Army.
Augie, would you stand up?
Justin Robert Marconi, United States Marine Gunny Sergeant.
Anyone else in the post like to say out loud the name of someone that somehow would be relevant? Yes, sir.
Sergeant First Class Michael J. Tucker, United States Army.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I haven't thought about my uncle for a long time, but my uncle Robert Crumb was killed in the Vietnam War. And he was a 3-star general, and what I'm understanding was the highest ranking officer killed in that war.
Would say his name
Robert Crumb,
and what branch?
Army,
United States Army.
yes.
Okay. Everyone, please silence their phones if you haven't already. Sorry, I missed that, sir. Anyone else like to call the name out loud? Somebody associated with the area or the post, or before I conclude? No one? If we could just have a moment of silence and reflect on the accomplishment of the day and the honoring of every one of these names and those that were mentioned here. Just bow your heads for a moment. Amen.
Amen.
Again, we want to thank you so much for hosting us here today. I mean, it's meant a lot for us to be here, to be able to share this fellowship time with you. You know, we can't really do this, without the support in so many ways along the way, emotional and physical. One of the things that we do have, I know a lot of you ask us about, is like t-shirts and things. We do have some t-shirts for sale if you're interested. No obligation, even a donation jar. But anything will help us get to the next town and get us put up and enable us to keep going, to the next destination. So we'll pull some stuff in, no obligation if you have any interest. And Dennis, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Glad to have you here.
Do you need yours?
So, what's that?
I've got yours.
Got jars?
Yeah, always, on my desk.
Okay. Thanks again, everybody, and we're gonna be here for a few minutes and fellowship with you guys, so God bless you. Thank you.